Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal, where as you can see, I'm joined by James Benge of CBS for this week's episode of Inside Arsenal Extra Time. James, good to see you, mate. All good?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you? Look, sun's shining.
No? Got two
3
lots
points.
of washing out on the line today.
Oh, I mean, you've got days left, haven't you?
Going
Days of
nuts.
potential outdoor washing.
Going nuts, mate. Going nuts. 2 lots of washing. It's something to celebrate. Something to celebrate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, decent week. Been a fun week of Champions League football.
It's been really good. I kind of found the opening week, obviously, as someone that has to work across, kind of keep across all of it. I found that an almighty slog. This has been good. Like more goals than you can shake a fist at. I know we're not Aston Villa extra time, but John Duran, amazing. What a player. Great results as well for like Lille. Yeah, it's been a really good week of Champions League football. And can you tell me where Arsenal ended it in the Champions League table?
13th.
Are they? I have no.
Yeah.
I was going to test you and Google it.
I only know that because I put that in my show this morning. I looked at the league table and was laughing about it. Yeah, I'm sure we're 13th. Well placed, perfectly placed actually. Poised to pounce in 13th place. Yeah, Borussia Dortmund top, aren't they? And yeah, so I thought yesterday's round or yesterday's games were really good. I thought the competition kind of came alive in a bit of a cliche way. Yesterday, obviously, the Villa game was brilliant. The noise, the atmosphere, it was just a proper sort of Champions League night, wasn't it? That one, the Juventus Leipzig game was mad, crazy. Some really good goals in that. The Lille Real Madrid, upset result was great. Yeah, I thought yesterday's results were really good, and I enjoyed a lot. I didn't watch them all, but I enjoyed the highlights package of those games yesterday.
Yeah, great fun, and I still think maybe the best performance I saw, and I was sort of bouncing between a lot of the games. The best performance I saw was quite possibly Arsenal's, I have to say.
I thought it was really good. I was surprised a lot of people. Well, I say I'm surprised. I mean, it's tough to find something when you talk about something everyone universally agree on something when it comes to the internet. But there was more people questioning the performance than I thought there would be, because I walked out of that stadium on Tuesday night and I was like, that was really good. I was like, it was so controlled, calm, measured against a very good team who are technically really, really gifted, who keep the ball really well. And Arsenal, yes, they kept the ball at times in that second half, but it never really laid a glove on Arsenal. Arsenal dealt with it very comfortably, still created good opportunities going forward themselves. I thought they were brilliant in the first half. The intensity they played with, some of the quality of football they played, the moves they put together. I just thought it was a really, really good, really interesting game to watch as well. I thought I just really enjoyed it on Tuesday night. I really did.
I think, for the fans that don't enjoy it, that's valid. But I think potentially there needs to be a sort of reassessing of, one, what control is, because you don't need the ball to control a game. And I think Arsenal are really showing that. But also sort of an understanding of what this team can be and should be when it's sort of lost, the player that Arteta always says is the heartbeat of this team, the creative identity. I think if you put Martin Odegaard in for this game, Arsenal would have gone for a 60% possession, let's dictate the tempo approach. But they didn't have Martin Odegaard, and they played in a way that was tailor-made for the talent they had. They were stronger, bigger, quicker than their opponents. They absolutely, PSG had all this possession in their own third in that first 25 minutes, when it looked like they were absolutely terrified, because they had this athletic press flying at them. All they could do was hit the ball to Bradley Barcola, who, bless him. I mean, I'd love to know how many bruises he had on his back after 45 minutes with Jurrien Timber. Arsenal are incredibly good right now at just bullying teams. And you sort of see this from rival fans as well, or sort of, the sort of sometimes faintly bad faith commentators you might see on like an overlap fan debate. They sort of think possession and shot numbers, and even to an extent, XG and all that, is the aim of the game. The aim is to win. And by the way, Arsenal are just winning by throttling their opponent's XG, scoring from their 2 of their first 6 shots, and then they don't need to take many more. I think when you watch the game, it's obvious that Arsenal are in control, are dominant, and are the better team. What more do you want?
Exactly. I think PSG's XG was 0.3 or 0.27. It was the lowest XG since Opta's stats began that PSG have got in a Champions League game, or something like that. Yep. And yes, granted, a pretty young side now, and they've moved away from the sort of attacking threat of Mbappe, Messi, Neymar, even obviously Dembele wasn't involved, but still there's a lot of talent on that pitch, really good players on that pitch, and to limit them to basically nothing, basically a corner where the guy got across at the near post and flicked it onto the bar. Aside from that, there was just nothing in that game from him. I thought it was a really good performance. I just really enjoyed the game as well. I was especially the first half. I just thought it was great, a great watch, really, really good watch. Spent so long waiting to get back in Champions League. And last year was great as well, but I just sat there in the first half on Tuesday night, thinking, I'm so glad that Arsenal are back here and we're watching this. It was just really, really nice. And there was some really good performances in that. I really enjoyed your piece after the Kai Havertz team.
Yes,
you said afterwards. So we're going to talk about Kai Havertz at some point in the show because he was exceptionally good on Tuesday night again. And there's just we talk about Martin Odegaard and Arsenal being without Martin Odegaard and how they were going to cope with that. If they were to lose Kai Havertz, what would this Arsenal team be at the moment without Kai Havertz? It's a real interesting debate, I think, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. I just wanted to talk about the midfield because I think the midfield's really, really interesting now as well. Merino came back early, it's fantastic. I think we were speaking about him last week, didn't we? And we were thinking maybe we'll see him against Southampton for 10 minutes or so, or maybe to just wait till after the international break and then bang, he's straight on against PSG for half an hour. And it's fantastic for Arsenal to have him back. Obviously, he came off Thomas Partey, who I thought was Thomas Partey's best performance of the season by a distance. I thought he was really good at Man City, but I thought he was excellent, really, really top quality performance from Partey this week. And then you've obviously got Declan Rice in there. Of course, Jorginho's still around, even though he's barely even seeing a football pitch at the moment. The midfield now is going to be really interesting, especially when Martin Odegaard comes back, hopefully sooner rather than later as well, in terms of how exactly can you fit this in. I've had lots of people getting in touch and talking about this, like Big T Frosty here says, I still feel Rice's best performances for Arsenal have been in the 6. Once Merino's fully up to speed, what do you think Arsenal's strongest midfield is? Him at 8 and Declan holding. It's a great problem to have with Partey starting to look at his best again. We've had other questions here talking about how do we balance the midfield now with Merino, but no Odegaard. Don't want to break up Trossard and Havertz. If Partey stays fit and continues to perform well, we'll talk about that afterwards. But certainly these ones, what Mikel is going to do with the midfield now is going to be really, really interesting. I mean, we're going to have to wait a little bit, I would presume, anyway, for Merino. I thought he looked a little bit rusty when he came on. He definitely didn't look up to speed, and which is no surprise whatsoever. It's going to take a little while for him to do that. But I think we're all expecting, when everyone's fit and healthy, probably Rice to drop back into the 6th when Mikel's trying to put out his strongest team, and you're probably going to have Merino next to Odegaard, and the likes of Partey and Jorginho are going to have to fight for places on amongst the substitutes. But it's a really nice position to be in, isn't it, for Mikel at the moment? It really, really is.
It's joyous. I agree with you. It felt like with Merino coming in for Partey, maybe some of the ball progression and options went down. I also thought this was maybe Declan Rice's best performance of the season, by the way, especially in defensive terms. He was just hoovering up any sort of breaks through the middle. I love that question because I hadn't thought about it as much as I ought to have about how Arsenal play with Merino back and not Odegaard. I mean, I guess the reality is there's a possibility that might just be this weekend. And for this weekend, look, Merino will have had 5 training sessions tops, maybe a few less. I almost think everything you didn't like about Merino's game, it can be very simply explained as like, guys had 2 training sessions. And as he said, and we can talk more about that, he is in a bit of a crash course about football at the moment. I think for now, you just stick with what works. That sort of Partey Rice, more of a double pivot, more of a 4-2-4 that really exploits Trossard and Havertz as well. And then at least then if Odegaard isn't back immediately after the international break, you're probably going to have time with Merino to sort of work out how he might fit into a system that includes Trossard and Havertz. But hopefully that's just a short-term question. But I think for right now, you just keep it rolling, you ease Merino in and hopefully put him in more winning positions like the one he came into on Tuesday night.
Yeah, I can't see there's any way he starts at the weekend, can you? I mean, it would just be too early. I would think you're certainly going to stick with Partey. But what did you make of Partey's performance? Like, I mean, did you agree? Do you think that was his best of the season so far?
Oh yeah, great reading of the game. Actually, I thought dealt quite well with a very technical midfield, which I sometimes think defensively is where he struggles, because once you pass him out of the game, he's out of the game. So I think he didn't overcommit, and he made the interceptions he could and made them with authority. Very impressive, I have to say. And I've been quite skeptical about Partey. And when we go to that question about should he get a new contract, I think from a purely footballing perspective, that needs to be the standard. He's hitting 6-7 games out of 10, and the other ones are good games. I still feel there's a little bit of variability, and it may be that in like 3 weeks, 6 weeks, however long, we're kind of looking at this and going, well, James, you were wrong. It just was him working his way back into fitness and form. But you need to see it, and you also need to know that he can kind of deliver that game if he's not played for 2.5 weeks, because Arteta's rolled out Merino, Rice, and Odegaard.
And that's an interesting one though, isn't it? Because we know that Thomas is always at his best when he's had a decent period, a decent run of games and up to speed. And suddenly, if you do take him out just as he hits top form now, and then suddenly you take him out and even put him on the bench for a couple of games in a row, is that going to upset his rhythm? And suddenly we see him struggling a little bit for form and fitness again.
Yeah, I mean, look, right now, as much as everyone is rightly excited about Mikel Merino, and the more we thought about him, the more we've talked about him, we thought, wow, perfect for the left eight. I think when Partey's playing well and Rice is improving, Merino doesn't get to start for Arsenal. That is just how, and that's just how football teams should work. I know it's always, fans are always like, throw the new guy in, but you have to earn your place, and you have to play well, and you maybe have to wait for someone else to play badly. So, even when Odegaard is back, I think until we're shown otherwise, until Merino delivers standout performances, that I'm sure he will, until Partey sort of loosens his grip on the game that he's on, the spot that he's established over the last few weeks, you roll out the midfield three that you probably kind of expected to before Merino arrived. Partey at the base, Rice and Odegaard. It's not bad, is it?
No, it's not bad at all. I think that's an interesting point as well. Yeah, obviously it is Partey's shirt to lose at the moment, isn't it? Maybe the expectation is that Merino will come in at some point, but right now, if Partey still keeps performing the way he performed against PSG, I cannot imagine Arteta will just take the shirt off him and chuck in Merino just because Merino's the sort of shiny new toy type of thing. But when you look at Rice, you said you thought that was probably his best performance of the season as well. If he does drop back into the six, I mean, we've had this debate before, I suppose. Do you still envisage him in that position, still being able to get into those forward positions that we've basically become accustomed to seeing him playing, or is he going to have to completely change his role in this team if he's going to be sitting as the six? Because we don't see Thomas Partey charging up there, for example. Certainly not anywhere near as much as we see Declan Rice.
But Declan Rice can get back.
That is very true.
I mean, I think you see Rodri do it, don't you? And
yeah,
I think we always sort of view Rice as aim to be as good as Rodri. And I think someone that can offer that sort of control at the back of the final third, just inside the opposition half, he can shut down counterattacks from there. Whereas, just the reality is that Partey has to play a bit deeper. You kind of see in and out of possession, he really does almost become a bit like not at as high a level, but you know how Busquets would just split the centre backs for Barcelona, they'd spread, and that's how possession would build. You do quite often see when you kind of look at Arsenal pass maps that Partey is doing something very similar. I think with Rice, he steps forward, you kind of get more ball progression from Gabriel and Saliba. I mean, I look at this from a sort of stats perspective, and all the stats say Declan Rice plays loads of progressive passes. I never get maybe it's because they don't rip the defense open progressive passes like Partey. But I mean, are you feeling like he could do that as a six? Be the guy that does those sweeping passes that take the midfield out of the game?
No, not particularly. I don't really see it. But then I don't know if I'm just not seeing it, but I'm not really seeing Thomas Partey play those type of passes at the moment either. I'm not, 2 years ago I was, certainly, even, before, but since he's come back into the team at the back end of last season, I'm not really seeing him produce those sort of absolute line-breaking passes when he takes in time midfields out of the game and gets it up to Martin Odegaard. I haven't really seen that from him yet. Maybe as he continues to get back to fitness, we will start seeing it more. So I don't know, but I don't really see Declan Rice playing that. I'm seeing much more of if Declan Rice is going to progress the ball forward, it's going to be more for him driving forward with it at his feet at times and sort of beating midfield that sort of way. But it's certainly a nice problem for Mikel Arteta to have. Absolutely. I mean, we touched on it there. You saw the question. Someone saying if Partey stays fit and continues to perform well, would you reward him with a new contract or an extension? I mean, it's a big decision for Arsenal to make. I know at this stage there's been no sort of discussions about that happening. I still look at it and I'd be surprised. It still feels like this summer will probably be the end of Thomas at Arsenal. Just from everyone's perspective, it kind of feels like it might be the right time. Maybe if he absolutely smashes it and stays fit throughout the entire season, Arsenal might look at it. But I don't know if Thomas would accept what they might offer him anyway. So I don't think it's a case of just what Arsenal would want. I think it's also a case of what Thomas Partey would potentially want at this stage of his career in terms of what he might be offered elsewhere as well. So it's a difficult one to answer, but I think there's definitely going to be another bit of a refresh in midfield come the summer. I think we'll certainly see one relatively big addition to that midfield and potentially another sort of younger addition in the mould of Sambi Lokonga type signing as well. So it feels to me right now that it's probably going to be the end of Partey this summer.
Absolutely. I mean, he'll be 32. If you're Arsenal, you would probably, even if you're really impressed and decide you want to keep him around, it's probably on a 1-year deal.
And it's a massive wage cut, a huge wage cut.
Big wage cut.
Yeah.
Because you're keeping him as the fifth midfielder.
Exactly.
And like
would he want to do that?
somewhere will kind of see those numbers and eclipse them somewhere in the
Exactly.
Serie A or Spain. Just maybe leagues that will also be sort of suited to him more as the physicality declines a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree 100%. Right, the Kai Havertz team. Let's give Kai more flowers. I've given him a lot already. I thought he was sensational at the weekend. On Tuesday night. Loved his goal as well. I don't think he got enough credit for that header. I thought it was a really, really, really good header, especially when you got 20-foot 7-inch Donnarumma charging at you.
That man's a giant.
He's so big.
What I saw him in the mix zone afterwards, and you literally, it's like that scene in The Office where they're like, did they put you in a grow bag when you were a baby? You just go like, and I'm 6'2" and a big guy.
Imagine him knowing you could probably hear the thunderous footsteps of him getting closer and closer to you, about to punch a ball very close to your head. And you still managed to be able to direct that ball the way he did. I thought it was a really clever header. All the focus was on Donnarumma and what he potentially did wrong in that incident.
Which was a lot.
Yeah, but I thought there should have been a lot of focus on what Kai Havertz did right, the timing of the run, and then being able to sort of swivel his head in that direction to be able to get it into that far corner. I thought it was a really, really good header. But his all-round game was just absolutely superb. And you wrote the piece, the Kai Havertz team, kind of, it maybe in jest a little bit in terms of that title, but there's certainly a debate to be had. As I said at the start of the show, you take Kai Havertz out of this team right now, it's a completely different Arsenal team to what we're seeing at the moment, isn't it? His influence now runs throughout the team in terms of how we play, everything about it. Kai Havertz is so central to everything at the moment.
He is, and when I sort of describe it as the Kai Havertz team, like you say, it's tongue in cheek. But I think what I would say is maybe his qualities are really reflected in Arsenal right now. They do a lot with a little. And I think one of the things that really strikes me about this 6'4" beanpole German, who you would think you kind of couldn't help but notice on the pitch, because and almost everything about him is so esoteric and unique. You can't help but sort of notice him until it really matters. And like you say, like no one in PSG shirt picked up Havertz's run. No one at all. He really understands sort of the gravity of his teammates, because it was like 2 minutes before then. I'm sure you'll remember, and anyone that was watching will remember, there were 3 sort of PSG defenders, and they were all sort of like lasering in on Bukayo Saka. Like, I had the perfect view from the press box. You could see they were just like watching him watch the ball, watching him watch the ball. And Havertz just sort of, no one, I'm not even sure anyone in the ground notices until the pass is made. He just loops around the back of all of them, and he's at the byline.
Yeah.
And the intelligence of the movement when Arsenal have possession, the sort of intelligence of the pressing, he has quite quickly picked up that Ødegaard role of leading the press, and he does it so well. Like the way he and Saka just cycled those balls so that PSG kept going, backing themselves into a corner in the flank. that stuff is outstanding. I don't care if he completes 3 passes or takes 1 shot. Like, he doesn't need a lot of the ball. The way he's playing right now and the belief he has, he will do an awful lot with a little. And he's, by the way, so clearly just loves being at Arsenal, feels settled, feels at home. His teammates love him and admire him. I can't believe how good he is so quickly, because now we've got to the stage where that early wobble is less of his Arsenal career than him being one of the best strikers in the Premier League. And I
Well,
think right now he's third best, I would say.
his
behind-
goal, you remember the sympathy penalty almost at Bournemouth
Yeah.
to get him off the mark, was pretty much exactly a year ago this week. So you think in the
Yeah.
space of 12 months where he's come from building up to that game to now, it's a remarkable turnaround. To basically saying I couldn't see Arsenal without Kai Havertz in the team at the moment. Everything that they do is he's so linked to everything that they do well in this team. And you go back a year, it's a remarkable transformation, and it's just an absolute classic example of having to give a player time, especially a new player, to adjust to new way. I mean, the comments from Merino this week to you guys in the mix zone just summed up exactly. He said this is a 28-year-old Spanish journeyman almost. He's played in a lot of football in a lot of countries. He's now a Spanish international, and yet he walks into Arsenal at 28. And he says, "I've never seen anything like this before. What they're asking me to do, I've just never seen anything like it." And so, even at his experienced age of his career, he's now having to adjust totally to a new way of playing and a new way of being asked to do things. And it takes time. It really does. I remember I talk about this example a lot whenever I sat down with Tommy Asu once for an interview, and it was like, and I was like, "Why? How have you got suddenly? How's the team sprung so far forward from battling for a Champions League spot to suddenly potentially looking like winning the title?" This is when they were top of the league in the first title run. And it was just like, well, we knew what Mikel was asking us to do for that first year, but we just couldn't do it. But now we actually understand how to do it, and it just takes time. It doesn't matter how old you are, how experienced you are, how good a footballer you are, how technically gifted you are. If you've been asked to do something in a way you've just never experienced before, it's just going to take time. And I think Havertz is an example of that. And the interview with Merino, which I thought you guys did in the mix zone, was fantastic. Was another.
I didn't ask a single question.
Oh, didn't you? We just on the
That's
edge.
why it was so good. Well, no, honestly, like sometimes you know this in press conferences as well. You just sort of see the guys next to you, and they're like asking all the right questions, and the press officer will be like, "Do you want anything?" And I'm like, "Mate, leave it to these guys. They're doing a much better job than me." And Marino's just dropping gold every line. When you sort of saw the transcript, you're like, "This is great."
Yeah.
I mean, and you can see these people are like giddy to be playing for Arsenal. Like, there's that line which I loved where he was talking about, I've in 4 weeks here, I've improved so much as a footballer.
Yeah.
And he was excited. He was excited to tell us about what it's like playing for Arsenal. That is just remarkable, and it makes you so confident that kind of when the next sort of Kai Havertz deal comes along, and you're like, "Oh, I don't know, this guy hasn't looked amazing, and he's, he's not strong enough, maybe, or he's not quick enough." You'll just go, "Yeah, but like, look what this coach is doing with every single player that comes through the door." I mean, it's incredible, and it should be so exciting to be an Arsenal fan right now.
Yeah, it absolutely 100%. Well, it is exciting to be an Arsenal fan right now. And Gerard here asked about Havertz. He said, "Are we slightly worried about how much Havertz has been asked to do? One assumes he'll be called up for Germany as well. Might perhaps be best if Sterling Jesus started in his place this weekend, as he has now become an ever-important cog in our setup, especially in Odegaard's absence." But again, I think this probably goes back to the fact that I would genuinely worry now about Havertz not being in this Arsenal team, just because of what he brings to it and how I just think there'd be a completely different team without Havertz there. Yes, you do have to factor in at some point rotation. I'm just not sure at this early stage of the season it has to be now, if you see what I mean. Like I would still, I've had questions about we should be resting Saka as well right now. But to be fair, I think that he has rested Saka more. Maybe not from the start, but he's taken Saka off in lots of games now, which we haven't really seen before. So he's not playing full 90 minutes all the time. Are we slightly worried about how much Havertz has been asked to do? I don't really think I am right now. I just think he can do it as well. He just is a machine.
Yeah, I would be delighted for Arsenal if they got 2-3-0 up nice and early. Havertz scored, and they could get him off. Like you say with Saka as well. I think maybe that is the way to do it at this stage of the season. Is you get your games won, you get your points on the board, and then you hold back. I mean, we should also say they're not a rest by any stretch of the imagination, but international breaks, as long as you get through them without anything breaking, you 2 games in a fortnight.
Yeah.
And there's no guarantee, say, that Nagelsmann would use. I mean, it's not like he's short on options. It's not like he may not use Havertz in full for
Well,
both those
there's a
games.
lot of pressure in Germany for him not to start at the moment, isn't there? Havertz.
Havertz,
There's definitely a lot of talk from German fans about Havertz not starting at the moment.
by all means,
Mm.
have at it. You play Nicholas Füllkrug up front. Enjoy.
Yeah, I'd go along with that.
See if
I
I
have to say. So you're not worried about how much he's been asked to do at the moment?
No. I mean, I do think he's a phenomenally fit player, isn't he? Everyone you
Yeah.
talk to at Arsenal and Arteta will say the same. I just think, I think Gerrard has a good point there, and I think it would be really helpful if Arsenal could kind of get to the stage where they can give Jesus, for instance, a really long, meaningful run out. I don't quite know how you can do that. Maybe the way to do it is something like you take Trossard out. Again, very harsh. They're all playing so well. I just couldn't pick someone to drop. You take one of them out, bring Jesus into the 11, so he's getting some meaningful minutes, and then when the game's won, if you can do that, you take Havertz out. Then maybe.
Yeah. I think it'd be an easier decision if Jesus was playing well and scoring goals.
Yeah,
At the moment. The fact
he's okay. Again, it's sort of lots of fun little cameos, but when the goals don't come, you're a bit reticent to then be like, start him.
I just think he looks like a player who's desperately trying to impress a bit too much at the moment. Jesus, when he's coming on, he's doing a little bit too much where he could be getting his head up and finding other people. I thought I liked his performance against Bolton in the cup. I mean, admittedly, that was against Bolton, League One side, but I thought his cameo against PSG was a bit odd.
It's a bit like Martinelli before
exactly
the goal.
That, 100% that, and that kind of feels like hopefully, if he can get himself a goal, but then it's harder, isn't it? Because you need to be on the pitch. You need to be on the pitch longer to be able to have more chances to get yourself that goal. And Martinelli was given plenty of opportunity and plenty of minutes to sort of turn around his form and get himself a goal. And so, you're in that sort of catch-22 situation with Jesus at the moment. But maybe, look, this maybe is a game that we see. I mean, he was unchanged for PSG, wasn't he, from the Leicester game? Would he go 3 games in a row unchanged, or would he make a couple of changes? Could you potentially give Martinelli a rest and play Sterling on the left? Could you, Wanyeri, after that amazing cameo at the weekend, which was just unbelievable when he came on, and do you give him a start in this game? And Jesus, Havertz, there is that question to ask as well. So it'll be interesting to see. Do you think he will do any changes, or are you expecting same as again?
I suspect. I mean, I saw Timber after the game. He looked fine. I didn't even speak to him. Saw him, but I think we might see some sort of rotation needed at fullback, which would be such a shame. I thought Timber was, as much as I described as the Kai Havertz team, I thought Jurgen Timber was the best player on the pitch.
Oh, look, let me see. I messaged you before this and I said, anything specific you want to talk about today? And you said, I'd love to talk about Jurgen, mate. I'm head over heels at the moment.
I love this guy. I think I know I'm sure he's not small, but you just put him next to the absolute giants of the Arsenal team. And it's a bit like Scrappy Doo. But I always liked Scrappy Doo. Maybe I'm in the minority that he's ferocious, energetic. I mean, they're very good technically when he gets on the ball. Real understanding how to be a right back. You saw there were occasions where he had to drift into centre back. He works, he fights.
He's basically Lauren. You're describing Lauren.
Yeah, actually, Lauren is such a good
it
comp
is
for him.
It's been a lot of people have mentioned now. I remember someone might be this morning or yesterday talked about it and made the comparison, and it is absolutely right. Everything that you just said there was describing Lauren, but obviously it's not. You're talking about Jurgen Timber. They're so similar. They seem so similar in what they do, and I thought he was. That was such a good 45 minutes. But so he looked all right in the mix zone, did he?
He looked okay, and he was sort of doing the autographs. I mean, he didn't come through to us. His family were there, as he sort of said in the press conference.
Yeah.
So I think it was an exciting day. But, when you see the guys that you think might be injured, you do watch their every step. I didn't see no hobbles, no limps, no nothing. So I really hope so. And we should address this question. If both he and Ben White were 100% fit, and we have just the form we have now. So going into this Southampton game, who would you start at right back?
Timber.
Yeah,
I
I
think.
would.
But I think it's again.
Horses
That's
for
not me saying,
courses.
"Oh, Ben White, bench forever, Ben White." I just think you balance their minutes. You just share their minutes instead of running both into the ground. When you've got two top quality players like that, that's why you buy Timber, isn't it? Surely it's just you can just share those minutes around between themselves, so you don't have to do what you did to Ben White last season, where he basically ran himself into ground and played half the season injured, but would do that and could do that because he's as good as Ben White is. So
I can't believe Arsenal have Ben White and Jurrien Timber with Tomiyasu as the third choice.
Tomiyasu there as well, and Calafiori is just. I love Calafiori. I absolutely love what I'm seeing from him. He's chaos, and
It's such
he's
fun player.
such fun to watch. There's definitely stuff. I look at Calafiori now, and I just look a year down the road and think what sort of player he'll be there, and that just excites me so much when he's had a year of Arteta and the coaching staff working on him and ironing out the sort of deficiencies which I see at the moment. Yeah, and just calm him down a little bit and iron those out. And I just look at the attributes he's got and just think he's going to be an absolute monster of a footballer in a year's time. And that's really, really exciting. It really, really is.
The biggest thing about this team, they're just so likable, especially that every one of those players now. I don't have that they've got this special little thing that makes you really want the best for them as people and players. I haven't got the chance to speak to Jurrien or anything yet either. Obviously, it's been such a tough start to his life. I'm really excited to sort of see him in the mix zone or get an interview with him. Maybe Arsenal, if you're watching this, please. Can we get him on this pod? Anyone from Arsenal, Mikel, if you're watching, get him on. We'd love to talk to him.
Both of them. I saw his brother got man of the match for Feyenoord in their game on Wednesday night as well, didn't he?
Yeah, I watched a bit of that game. He's good, proper box-to-box midfielder. Let's play Jurrien there as well. I'm sure he could do a job.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the brother. I'm sure he'll make a move at some point somewhere. Interesting if he comes over to England. But definitely a good weekend, a good week in the Champions League for the Timber brothers. Just wanted to bring this one up. You obviously do your team of the week. I looked at your team of the week. There was no Benjamin Sesko in it, but there was Vlahovic in it in the battle between the Arsenal target strikers yesterday. Couple of questions here. One says, "Hi, Charles and Benge. I hope Arsenal are keeping tabs on Benjamin Sesko in his development. What a striker he'll be in the future." Liam then says, "Seeing both Sesko and Vlahovic both scoring a brace each, one from each with world-class strikes. Can you see Arsenal in the January transfer window going on and signing a proven goal scorer?" I can't see that in January. No. I can't see. I mean, Leipzig aren't going to let Sesko go in January. Juventus wouldn't do Vlahovic in any. You try and sign any top quality striker in January, it's just going to be virtually impossible for the type of striker that Arsenal want. Do I see it in the future? Yes, 100%. But what did you think of both of those two watching that game? They were. I mean, Vlahovic's actually both of Vlahovic's goals were really nice. To finish the near post run and finish very Giroud-like for the first goal. And Sesko's. I don't know what was more impressive, Sesko's strike or the 20-foot leap he did in celebration of the goal.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been a huge Vlahovic fan. He's sort of proving me wrong a little bit this season with Juventus, and clearly a good striker. But I couldn't ever quite see him getting to wow, best striker in the Premier League, up there with Haaland levels. And you sort of see Sesko and you see the rawness of him, just the way he hits a ball and it just gets exploded. He is very exciting. In terms of the January question, like you say, the sort of circumstances that would mean that sort of deal would be doable in January is so unlikely for teams like Leipzig and Juventus as well. They'll be competing for big things. They won't want to lose those guys. But I mean, I'm firmly of the view, seeing him bits and bobs of him this season, that if Sesko does become available this January, this summer, whenever, Arsenal have got to swing right to the fences to get this guy, especially while he's young, so that you can get away with not playing him every single game. Such a talent. Yeah,
it wouldn't surprise me at all if they revisit that one.
Yeah, and I think they're quite well placed if they do have to revisit.
Yeah, they've put a lot of the groundwork in, haven't they? So I don't think Sesko's decision to stay has burned his bridges of Arsenal at all. So it'll be interesting. That's certainly one to keep an eye on as we head towards maybe next summer. But yeah, good day for both of the Arsenal targets. Did you see By the way, did you see the video of Mars Lewis Skelly's mum watching him come on and make his Champions League debut? It's one of the best things I've seen on the internet this week. I've watched it so many times. Just the reaction, the realization, the joy, the pride. It's just such a lovely thing to see. It's just one of the best things I've seen on the internet.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it already, anyone watching this, beautiful moment, really lovely. I didn't realize that. I mean, do you know how we watch sort of second halves of games? Is we're sort of writing a bit and keeping an eye on the subs bench. So I always feel like people know the subs like 2 minutes beforehand because that's how we absorb second halves. So sort of that amazing shock of like, was it Saka coming off as well? And then like this explosion of joy from Mrs. Lewis. I loved it. Again, it sort of speaks to this wonderful family atmosphere that's building around Arsenal, or has been built around Arsenal.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. You going on Saturday? You there, the Emirates?
No, Dad's birthday. So I'm back in the Midlands. May pop along to Villa Park, sort of dependent on whether I think it might be Eric Ten Hag's last game in charge. Oh, well, and if Aston Villa are kind enough to let me in. But yeah,
I sincerely hope there is a Champions League hangover and Aston Villa do not spank Manchester United, because the longer Eric Ten Hag stays in that job, the better for everyone. I would say I'm going to be in the press box. I'm going to be in the press box on Saturday, so looking forward to that one. I mean, if Arsenal can get through that game, we hope, obviously it's return of Aaron Ramsdale. For well he's going to have an absolute worldie of a game and make 25 saves. But if Arsenal can still manage to get one past him, hopefully that will be enough to get a win. That would have been the way they would have navigated this little period between the two international breaks, minus Martin Odegaard and the other injury issues aside, and the games they've had to deal with. I mean, it'd be a fantastic, fantastic period for them, because I think we were all very, very. You think of the air of desperation almost, or there was a real downbeat mood, wasn't there, after that international break, seeing what happened to Martin Odegaard, and to have then got through all of these games, hopefully without losing a game. And if they do get the 3 points on Saturday, I think they deserve an awful lot of credit for the way they've navigated this patch, because they do then have a really difficult November coming up as well.
Yeah, but so does everyone else. I mean, 17 points from 7 games would be sterling work. No one of the 3 title contenders would be more than a point ahead of you. Liverpool have got Palace this weekend, so evidently that's now become the most bankable 3 points in the Premier League ever since I said anything about them. Arsenal would be firmly in touch. I think their fixtures have been by far the hardest. I know kind of before the season, I was probably, and maybe even before the fixtures, I was talking about them blitzing their way to the front. That just wasn't possible with the games and the circumstances. But being in that, the first bend, the sort of getting towards a quarter mark of the season, not having let the leading 2 slip away when they've had altogether more favourable fixture lists is really encouraging. I mean, 3 of the hardest away games Arsenal are going to play this season are already in the bank, and they got 7 points. 7 points from them. Yeah.
And we're a minute away from having 9 points from them.
I know.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the top 4 right now. I'm just trying to find Crystal Palace in there somewhere. Are they first?
Keep
no,
going.
second,
Keep
third.
going.
Hold on. I'm just going to scroll down the league to try and find Crystal Palace. And there they are, 18th. How many wins is that this season? None from 6.
I am really dreading the 9th of November, where Crystal Palace face Fulham.
I thought you were going to say that was when it was mathematically impossible for them to get top 4.
Could well be.
By the 9th of November.
You know what they need? They need Rob Holding back.
They do. Bring Rob back. Absolutely change. He's wasn't even in squad photo. Justice for Rob.
Disgrace.
Justice for Rob. Look, mate, it's been a pleasure as always. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you everyone for watching and for listening. I'll be back tomorrow with my usual show in the morning. We're going to look ahead to the game at the weekend. Got then Mikel Arteta's press conference at 1:30, which I'll be heading to as well. I'll try and do a show after that, just going over the big talking points from the press conference. Until then, me and James will be back next week at some point to try and, I don't know, find a ray of light during the international break gloom. And yeah, have a great time. Have a good weekend, mate. I'll catch up with you next week.
You too. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.